Doge has not been as effective in cutting money as it claims to have been. No matter how good Doge is at doing what it does, it's not going to completely eliminate that $1 trillion that's left out of that $6 trillion budget to be able to run the federal government and pay for all of the other, food stamps and things like that, keeping the lights on at the Smithsonian. So I just don't see, and frankly, according to David Walker, Doge has not been as effective in cutting money as it claims to have been. So according to David Walker, they've only cut something on the order of $12 billion so far. Doge claims it's cut something like $200 billion. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I don't know. But at the end of the day, we still have huge fiscal deficits that are going to drive the debt higher year over year. So, I mean, we're really on this pace to hit. If you grow the debt at $2 trillion per year, we're almost at $37 trillion. We're going to be at, 57 trillion by 2035. And if you account for the fact that extending the Trump tax cuts, which I think is likely to happen, grows the deficit by another 5 trillion, you're looking at over $60 trillion of debt by 2035. And so that's not a great position to be in when it comes to debt to GDP ratios. The debt is never a problem. If Bill Gates has $1 million of debt, who cares? Mark, if you and I have $1 million of debt relative to our income, maybe that's a bigger deal. But for Bill Gates, it's always a question of what your debt is relative to your output. And so we are not on a sustainable track to keep the nation's gross domestic product far higher than what the actual debt is trending. That ratio gets all out of whack. And what you and I were talking about earlier is a study out of Penn Wharton. And the study out of Penn Wharton says that when we hit 200% debt to GDP, which is slated to happen at current rates between 2040 and 2043, we've already passed the point of no return. That there's no combination of raising taxes or reducing spending at that point that could arrest the financial collapse of our country. So we have to make decisions far in advance of 2040. We're extending tax cuts through 2033, most likely. Trump has talked about his one big beautiful bill. Mike Johnson, House Speaker, has talked about getting that through before Memorial Day, so sometime in May. They're hoping to get that pushed through. I think it'll likely happen. Now, one thing you do have to realize, if we can talk about the markets recently, what's happening with the markets, a lot of times the presidential agenda hangs on how the economy is doing. And when the economy is not doing well, particularly if it seems like it's a self-inflicted wound, which these tariffs really do seem like, it can really jeopardize your entire agenda. So I felt pretty confident about the extension of these tax cuts right up until a couple of days ago when these tariffs went into effect. And now really everything's being called into question. So I think it's like they're likely to go through, but I'm less confident about it than I was before.
Yeah, that's an interesting take because they are linked for sure. And that's why I say the only reasonable thing as a planner is to assume that the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to expire like it's scheduled to expire, because we know about gridlock in Washington, and it only takes a handful of Congress people to get nervous about their reelections, and that seems to be their focus. Really good information. So let's talk about some of these proposed changes. Social Security is a big one. People are all, are we going to have tax on Social Security at all? Is it going to be adjusted? What does that look like? So what are your feelings and what are you reading out there, Dave?
I don't think it would be smart to waive taxes on Social Security because and let's face it, there's only, I think, about 40% of the country that pays tax on their Social Security. And remember, this is linked to provisional income. Mm-hmm. If your provisional income is greater than $44,000 as a married couple, then up to 85% of your Social Security can become taxable to you at your highest marginal tax bracket. If you're single, that number is $34,000. And of course, there's some lower thresholds at which point your Social Security can be taxed. The reason they put those thresholds in place, Mark, is because Social Security was running into a funding crisis. And to be able to keep Social Security solvent into the future, they agreed, this is Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan back in the day, they agreed that portions of certain income earners could have their Social Security taxed. And that did plug a hole in Social Security. So if you undo all of that, then what you do is you bring back those holes.